God, this fake outrage towards Nia Jax online. Jesus. Cancel culture ain't going to cancel her out. I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, but I am somewhat of a fan. And she's got those live WWE audience pissed off. Not doing a bad job. But today's Raw, I got to be honest with you, I thought was a very smooth show. It definitely had some of its weak points. And, you know, I tell you, as the weeks go by, you're starting to see, and I see it, some of the storylines that Triple H wanted to do last year, late last year, early this year, that kind of got scrapped because of Vince McMahon returning to creative, heading up the ship, leading into the merger. Because remember, once the merger and acquisition was over with, Vince McMahon no longer has the authority really to keep himself in creative. TKO Group Holdings is the one that makes that call. And now suddenly Nikki Cross is back on the funny stuff. You see Candice LeRae kind of brought back in the mix. XIA Li back on TV, and man, I don't think today helped her cause at all. And it's not her fault, it's creative. DIY being pushed, and with all due respect, when you had Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in the locker room, and they're with Alpha Academy, and they're with the New Day, and I can't remember who else they were with, and they're like, look at this tag team division. And I'm like, yeah, look at it. Look at it. I know Imperium was not in the locker room with them, but Imperium is about to be split up. Giovanni Vinci going to be booted. In fact, Gunther is so ashamed with Giovanni Vinci in the very near future. Doesn't even, this is not going to be a Booker T GI Bro moment, but he will not even be able to use Imperium's music. You are not worthy to even have anything reflect Imperium. So we got a few things coming up. Cross is about to make his return. I know you have not seen any news about that, but KARRION KROSS is about to return to WWE television, and Triple H wants KARRION KROSS to feud with Sheamus. So we will see a lot of physicality. And listen, under this new ownership and the matches being able to go a little bit further, I mean, they still have to stay within certain boundaries for various reasons we've discussed before. But I think Sheamus versus KARRION KROSS may end up being a nice banger of a feud. So look out for that. Now, tonight's show, we'll get a run about 90 minutes. I want to welcome everyone to your Raw post show. I am Don Tony. We're going to talk a little Raw. We're going to talk a little WWE news, even though we kind of gave you a couple of things already. Go over the weekend ratings, some interesting stuff. Someone's rating streak continues, if you know what I'm talking about. And once again, Carmelo Hayes, we need to address it. He actually visited not only the Penthouse this week, but the Outhouse as well. Crown Jewel news and a few other tidbits. I have my notes. We'll get into it. Now, couple of things right off the bat. Just a reminder, FS1 this Friday will be hosting SmackDown. I believe MLB playoffs will be on, and that's why you will not see WWE SmackDown on Fox. So make sure you know FS1 is where you got to switch it over. Later on, we're also going to do some quick NXT Halloween Havoc Week 1 predictions. Not a bad card for this week. Not the most strong cards in recent NXT Halloween Havoc memory, but, you know, we'll go over the matches. For those that are interested, you are welcome to join me tomorrow night to check out the watch party, playback.tv/Don Tony Show. As always, we're going to be doing a watch party tomorrow. And if you're interested as well, Kev Castle and yours truly will be live tomorrow night. We will be recording on Patreon, streaming for our Patreon audience, and then it'll be available on DonTony.com and most of the audio platforms out there. As I've been saying for probably a half a week now, that I am in the process of switching servers. So some of the platforms out there do not have the feeds updated yet. I kind of could tell who actually tunes into the shows and who doesn't, because after saying it across 3 or 4 shows and people are like, hey, I can't get it here, I can't get it there. You know, I must have brought it up like a half a dozen times already. But just go to DonTony.com. You should be going there anyway, because that's what keeps, you know, these shows alive. And I want to thank each and every one of you, whether you're tuning in live or tuning in the archive. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff to get into. You know, this week in wrestling history this week, you know, we know about Cody Rhodes and the story, finishing the story. Now WWE keeps bringing up the story. Damian Priest mocking Cody a little bit without mentioning the name Roman Reigns, but reminding everyone that Cody still has a story that is not yet completed. This week in history, we do actually have Dusty Rhodes, Hard Times, but the infamous promo that 99% of the wrestling audience out there doesn't know about with Dusty Rhodes. And it kind of baffles me, because it's definitely a hybrid of Hard Times. But, you know, everybody picked up on the Hard Times promo about 10, 15 years ago. But there's also another promo that Dusty cut not too long after that no one ever talks about. You do a Google search, it doesn't even come up. And we're going to revisit that tonight. Unfortunately, it's also the anniversary of Hulk Hogan joining TNA. Katie Vick on Monday Night Raw in the ring. We got some interesting, wacky stuff to get into a little bit later. Yeah, we'll revisit Hard Times. It's only a minute and a half, but we'll play those back to back a little bit later. Cornette with another memorable promo from Monday Night Raw back in 1997. A few other things. Roman Reigns, this week in history, made his NXT debut. Believe it or not. This is actually one of the screenshots for later on. See that? Roman Reigns made his debut. So I wonder how many people are going to remember that. So Monday Night Raw tonight. I tell you, you know, I always try to, when we do video shows, I always try to provide some screenshots of the show. And I also try to, you know, keep in mind that a majority of everyone out there tunes into the audio version. You are not required to see photos. If you saw Raw, you already know what went down. But who wants to see this ugly face for 90 minutes straight? So I try to mix it up with photos. I try to grab as many as I can, but not only that, good quality photos. And I got to be honest with you, tonight's Raw was kind of a pleasure to take notes about. This was not a hard episode of Raw to keep up with. You know, AEW Dynamite, this is not a shot on AEW Dynamite, but my God, sometimes when you're trying to take notes in real time, your head wants to explode because there's so much of a mess going on. You're trying to fit 3 pounds of bologna in a 1 pound bag, and sometimes that is not fun. But, you know, we'll talk a little bit about Raw. Yesterday, we talked in detail about the big news involving TNA. Impact Wrestling. Yes, they are bringing back TNA. I will talk about it Wednesday on Wednesday Night Dynamite, because Wednesdays we dedicate the show to everything but Raw and SmackDown. But if you want a good idea as far as my viewpoints and some little tidbits that I actually was told firsthand about what they are planning to do, check out the beginning of Sunday night's Sit Down, because we get into it right at the beginning of the show. There's a lot of tidbits there. But something we can mention tonight, and there's no reason to wait, CM Punk visited Impact Wrestling yesterday. They did TV tapings in Cicero, Illinois. So obviously they're in Illinois, not too far for CM Punk to travel. Why was he there? Simply put, visiting friends. Just mingling, no executive meetings. I know people are going to try to clickbait you about it, but CM Punk did visit Impact Wrestling. Remember, Ace Steel was an agent for Bound for Glory this weekend. Ace Steel is doing some work with Impact Wrestling. Does that mean that CM Punk signs any type of a deal with Impact because of it? No, absolutely not. Ace Steel will not be the catalyst to get CM Punk in that company. Listen, one thing I think people need to stop quickly is Ace Steel to CM Punk is not Jimmy Hart to Hulk Hogan. And if I'm sure you probably know what I mean by that. They are close and they do like working together. But CM Punk, if he is offered the big money, big opportunity deal with WWE or anywhere else, it's not going to be hindered because Ace Steel is doing work for Impact Wrestling. This is not, hey, give my friend a job and I'll work for you for a little while. That is not the case. Could CM Punk end up in Impact Wrestling? Absolutely. I don't think it'll be anything more than a few months at most. If that happens, again, check out last night's show. We talked about that too. But last night, he showed up at the TV tapings for Impact behind the scenes. So I want to put that out there because I know a lot of people are going to try to really turn this into something that it's not. Remember, CM Punk visited WWE earlier this year. CM Punk visited Impact Wrestling one additional time this year. They were in Illinois. He stopped by, friendly, hanging out, taking it easy, not trying to send the shot to AEW. That is dead and buried. That's what happened, in case you wanted to know. Also, for those that are interested, this actually might be something that a lot of you would want to tune into. Believe it or not, The Undertaker has a Patreon now, and he has a podcast. It appears he's going to try to do this weekly, and it's called 6 Feet Under. So if you want to check out Undertaker's Patreon, his podcast will be behind a paywall. There's not going to be any free version online. But, I will say this, out of respect to The Undertaker, you see some Patreons out there and they'll charge you $10, $20 minimum to be a part of their page. I think his Patreon only has 3 tiers and I think $5. And believe it or not, there may even be a $2 tier. I'm not sure, but I know that there's a $5 tier and everybody gets the podcast. I think the more expensive tier is where you could actually send him questions, which, is pretty much the norm with a lot of pages. But check it out. Undertaker, doing his weekly stories. As time goes by, Undertaker gets more and more domesticated. Remember when I said that like 15 years ago? That WWE is going to start domesticating The Undertaker, and people are like, no, he'll always be the dead man. Of course, he'll always be the dead man. But people never, ever envisioned The Undertaker to be talking, just normal, like Mark Calloway. No one ever envisioned that for the most part. Also, I don't think WWE acknowledged it tonight, but I will. My calculations are correct. Gunther has now been the Intercontinental Champion for 500 days. So Gunther, congratulations, props. Greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. As years go by, we forget about some other title reigns over the years. Was it the strongest reign? Did he have the greatest opponents compared to others of yesteryear? No. But one thing Gunther has shown, he could fight a dead person and still have a banger of a match. And I think that's why Gunther might arguably be the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. That title might have meant more 20, 30 years ago, but Gunther, the quality of his work, you never feel like Gunther wings it. You never feel like there's gaga. I don't even think gaga is in his vocabulary. So big props to Gunther for being champion 500 days, and props to WWE for allowing him to be champion for 500 days. Remember, you got to remember the companies when people are like, oh, Orange Cassidy's had the best run of any champion. Well, that's because Tony Khan put him on TV 38 times or whatever it is to defend those titles. It's not just the wrestler, it's also the opportunity. When you're given the opportunity, you got to make the best of it. Gunther absolutely has been making the best of it. So, but unfortunately, once again, he's not on a premium live event. He is not a crown jewel. Saturday, we discussed the list of WWE superstars and champions who will not be a crown jewel. If you want to check out that list, go check out Saturday's show. But I will say this, one match that has been scrapped for crown jewel is INDUS SHER versus originally was supposed to be not Cody Rhodes, no, Damian Priest and Finn Balor. That now, does that mean that INDUS SHER is not wrestling in Saudi Arabia? No, that does not mean that at all. But originally, they were going to have INDUS SHER get a title match in Saudi Arabia for obvious reasons, but that is not happening. Raw tonight, last minute, they added a match to Crown Jewel, and that match is Cody Rhodes taking on Damian Priest. And with Damian Priest and Finn Balor being your tag team champions right now, that also means the tag titles will not be on the line at Crown Jewel. Now, the big asterisk is Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. No, we're not going to get Jimmy versus Jey at Crown Jewel. It appears that is the Mania match. Even though they get paid insane amounts of money for Saudi Arabia, they are not going to speed up that feud. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Crown Prince is extremely enamored with Jimmy versus Jey. For us, watch WWE on a weekly basis, when we follow the bloodline closely, we have obviously much stronger feelings about it. But that Crown Prince is more like, D-Generation X, Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, blah, 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 blah. I don't think it's like Jimmy and Jey. I don't think that's top priority. Now, the big question is Jimmy end up getting involved in one of these matches? People are wondering, are we going to get Finn Balor versus Jey Uso? I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason why I don't think Jey Uso versus Finn Balor is going to happen at Crown Jewel is because if you're going to have Cody versus Damian and you're going to have Jey versus Finn, why doesn't Cody and Jey just get their rematch? Right? I mean, aren't they entitled to a rematch? Why are they not getting a rematch? So if you're going to have the former tag team champions versus the current tag team champions in singles matches, you'll have a whole bunch of people shitting on it already. WWE don't care, and Saudi doesn't give a shit how we feel, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think what could end up happening is we could end up seeing Jey Uso get involved in the Cody versus Damian Priest match. Jimmy Uso could get involved in that match as well, and let the seeds start to sprout. We picked up on it 2 weeks ago. Remember Fastlane. Remember the SmackDown the night before Fastlane when the Judgment Day and the Bloodline formed this alliance. Rhea Ripley, Paul Heyman, alliance accepted. Then Fastlane happens, and for some reason, Jimmy Uso does not help the Judgment Day. Just remember how that went down at Fastlane. And then a week later, suddenly, Jimmy Uso gets involved and costs his brother Jey the tag team championships. Why did they not have it happen? Well, obviously we know why, because they didn't want Damian Priest and Finn Balor to win the championships or lose the championships at Fastlane. They wanted to do it on TV a week later as a little bit of a surprise factor. But the storyline appears to be a War Games match. Judgment Day and the Bloodline. Listen, you keep that alliance. Why do they need an alliance right now? Why do they need this dangerous alliance right now? Because it's got to lead to something, and that something is likely Survivor Series. Then once Survivor Series comes and goes, and it kind of feels like the Bloodline and the Judgment Day will lose War Games, and that will allow a split, and then maybe we might see some teasing of Bloodline and Judgment Day at odds with each other. But, something that I said, and I'm looking at, I saw it before we went live, but I saw 2 super chats come in. And I'm going to bring up one of them now because this is a good question. And I think people need to remember something that I said last week, because I think some people are putting some words in my mouth. You got to listen closely, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you got to listen closely to things that I say. And Lascelles Williams, thank you for the 10 spot, my friend. He says, and I quote, DT, not trying to stir it up, but your podcast buddies are saying the opposite, that Team Raw versus Team SmackDown War Games at Survivor Series is stupid and ain't happening. What say I? And this is about Team Raw with Adam Pearce and Team SmackDown with Nick Aldis. I appreciate what you sent, but you added 2 words to something that I said that I did not say last week. I never ever said Team Raw versus Team SmackDown was going to be War Games. Traditionally, Survivor Series has had more than one match with, groups fighting each other. You go back in the day, Survivor Series, there would be numerous matches that would be 5-on-5. I never said that Nick Aldis's team versus Adam Pearce's team would be War Games. I still believe Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis, for bragging rights, are going to have a Survivor Series match, their best 5 versus this best 5. And remember, you have certain participants on each brand that will not get a shot on Survivor Series unless they get a put-together match like this. You look at the SmackDown roster. There are several big names that could very well deserve to be on Survivor Series that will not get on unless there is a put-together match. So I never ever said War Games last week. I am sticking with what I said, that they are building Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis at odds with each other, and it's going to end up with some friendly competition, and it's going to be Team Pearce versus Team Aldis, a traditional Survivor Series match. Who knows? Maybe Shawn Michaels gets involved with it, and maybe we have Team NXT as well. That would be kind of strange, that 5-on-5-on-5. I don't know how you would do that, but it could happen. So I'm sticking with what I said, Lascelles. I agree. War Games for Team Raw and Team SmackDown would be stupid. I absolutely agree. But I never said it was going to be War Games. War Games is a whole different animal. But thank you for that. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit. James Campbell, do we get the Money in the Bank briefcase on the line with Cody Rhodes winning? I to say no immediately, that's not a bad idea. Think about it, guys. If Damian Priest put that Money in the Bank briefcase on the line at Crown Jewel and he lost to Cody Rhodes, Cody walks around with that briefcase and Cody teases that he's going to cash it in on Roman Reigns, I like it. The problem is WWE has transformed that briefcase that you cash it in unexpectedly. You're not going to have Cody Rhodes show up at Mania unexpectedly and hand the briefcase over and say, I want to cash in. And it would not go in line with recent memory where Cody gives the briefcase and says, I'm cashing it in at WrestleMania. Could happen, but I don't think it's needed. Cody Rhodes is going to get the title shot at WrestleMania 40. He does not need the briefcase. Doesn't need the briefcase. So I say no, briefcase will not be on the line. And not for nothing, when you look at when they announced Damian Priest and he comes out like this, it's pretty cool to see him with the briefcase, with the tag titles. It's all about the visuals, so Damian Priest looks great right now the way he is. And I say, do not mess with that at all. All right. This weekend, WWE had a couple of house shows, and they are experimenting with the LWO feuding with the Street Profits. Santos Escobar going at it with Bobby Lashley. The LWO, Carlito making his in-ring return, outside of Fastlane, obviously. But him teaming up with the LWO, beating the Street Profits. Street Profits have been losing on the house shows all weekend to them. Also, KARRION KROSS was on the shows, but taking on Butch. This is just to get him back in action. You know, a lot of people were saying a week ago that, oh, they keep it off TV for a couple of more months to let his hair grow in. No, they're not. Kross will be back on TV within the next 1 to 3 weeks at the most. And honestly, I would say next 2 weeks. Maybe you wait until after Crown Jewel. There's no reason to bring him back beforehand. But no, they're not keeping him off for a few more months just so he could grow hair. And, you know, they continue to do the three-way with Io, Asuka, and Charlotte Flair on the house show circuit. Bayley is losing her ass. Bayley getting a match at Crown Jewel versus Bianca Belair is still being discussed. Maybe we find out about that match this Friday on SmackDown. And again, Dragon Lee and Cameron Grimes, no love on the house show circuits as well, still losing a bunch of matches. I tell you, why did they bring Dragon Lee to the main roster? I don't get it. I mean, he had so much momentum with that match with Dominic Mysterio. Why not just leave him in NXT then for a little bit longer? Guy was killing it. Now he's just like a matter of fact with Cameron Grimes. I mean, you know, it's early, it's repairable, but I'm confused. It feels like what I've been saying, that they just brought him up to fill a spot to somebody who was released. Oh, so-and-so got released. We'll put Dragon Lee in his place. You know, I don't know. Especially we're in Texas too. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Raw tonight. Now, Raw tonight, we got a little Wade Barrett history tonight. American Airlines Arena, Dallas, Texas. That same building in 2010 is when Wade Barrett won season 1 of NXT. It was that same building, 2010, I believe, he beat John Cena. Did that happen the same night? I don't think they toured the American Airlines Arena twice in 2010. Well, anyway, he also was retired that night in 2016 in American Airlines Arena. Now, Michael Cole with some inaccurate information tonight. He said that the New Day retired Wade Barrett. That actually is not necessarily true. What happened that night, and I remember it clearly because we were kind of like annoyed with it because this was after he started, I got some bad news. He was in the League of Nations. We used to call it the League of Urinations. And I think it was him and Sheamus might have lost their match. And the League of Nations felt that Wade Barrett was the weak link. And they kicked Wade Barrett out of the League of Nations. And that was his last match. He was gone from WWE a short time after. So it was the League of Nations that retired Wade Barrett. This was not a retirement match by the New Day, but that was his last match, in WWE at that time. But we open up Monday Night Raw tonight from the American Airlines Arena with the Judgment Day. Finn wants the honors tonight to say the Judgment Day won Monday Night Raw. You got to be a weekly listener to understand why I said that. But Finn Balor, the Judgment Day runs Monday Night Raw. Cody Rhodes' music hits almost immediately. Cody Rhodes comes out and he gets into a little bit of a confrontation, mostly with Damian Priest. Cody asks Finn and Damian, who are there by themselves, how does it feel to be interrupted? Cody had some choice words for the leader of Judgment Day, but Rhea Ripley is not there. So the crowd's like, ooh, he said Rhea is the leader of Judgment Day. Cody says to Finn Balor and Damian Priest that Rhea is also their mammy, and he reminds everyone that Rhea was the one that cut the deal, the alliance with the Bloodline. And Cody Rhodes addresses Damian Priest for the low blow last week. Damian Priest trolling Cody Rhodes a little bit, saying, oh, you kind of forgot that I also put you through a table. Damian Priest mocking Cody about his story, and the story is that he failed. And Cody loosens his tie-up and says, how's about we brawl right now? And Damian Priest is like, don't be stupid. You know I have a match with Jey Uso a little bit later. So Damian Priest proposes a match at Crown Jewel, him versus Cody Rhodes. Cody accepts. Cody wants to give the fans in Dallas tonight a little preview of Crown Jewel. And Damian Priest says, yeah, that's a great idea. So what happens? Rhea Ripley comes out. Dominic Mysterio comes out. And then the whole Judgment Day is going to circle Cody Rhodes. But here comes Jey Uso. And there was a kind of a strange moment tonight. There was a couple of things tonight with Jey Uso. It wasn't his fault, but that main event match with that referee, man, there was a really shitty part of that finish that we'll talk about. But the Judgment Day start beating down on Cody Rhodes. JD McDonough shows up. JD and Damian Priest are the ones doing the most damage to Cody. And Jey Uso comes out, and before he tries to make the save, Rhea Ripley's down the rampway, and they show Jey and Rhea, and they have a little bit of a stare down, like, and Jay's like a little bit mesmerized by Rhea Ripley. And meanwhile, his partner is getting his ass kicked around ringside. But what we end up having happen is Jaden McDonough and Damian Priest are beating the crap out of Cody Rhodes outside the ring. They have Cody Rhodes right by the ring steps. Jaden McDonough has Cody leaning against the ring steps, puts a chair in front of Cody's left leg, I believe, and Damian Priest takes another chair in. He whacks the ring steps, but he whacks the leg. So Cody Rhodes in an extreme amount of pain. The trainers come out, crowd booing. We got piped and boos. We got boos everywhere. Not Dominic Mysterio level boos, but a decent amount of boos. We go to commercial. We come back and we see Cody Rhodes. Yeah, it was the left leg. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, they're in the back, and Cody's in a lot of pain, and Michael Cole is selling. What kind of condition is Cody Rhodes going to be a crown jewel? We all know that Cody is going to save the day in no time. More on that later. So we get our first match, and, Akira Tozawa is now a member of the Alpha Academy. Now, I'm a fan of Akira Tozawa. That guy, honestly should write a book. He should do seminars after he gets released. How to have a long money-making WWE career doing next to nothing. And I don't mean next to nothing. Tozawa can wrestle. But if you really look at Tozawa's last, 5 years, if you want to focus on that, you think about the 24/7 title, and you think about everything with Dana Brooke, and you think about the Tamina Snuka stuff, and this stuff, this motherfucker, is he the Japanese version of R-Truth? Seriously, and I'm not trying to say that to be nasty. I'm saying it as a compliment. It's like R-Truth and Akira Tozawa. My God, I'm pretty amazed how this guy is like Teflon. Seriously, he has mapped out a pretty damn good WWE career. And you look at him and you're like, what did he really do? If you look at his matches, he's there to put smiles. Obviously we know he's there to put smiles in everybody's faces. Last week he's doing this. Lowest rated segment of Raw. He's doing this. It's the lowest rated segment of Raw. Not for nothing. I've seen Akira Tozawa for 10 years acting like an idiot. Putting smile on my face, acting like an idiot. But doing this, big deal. So what happens? He joins Alpha Academy. So what do you think happens when Akira Tozawa becomes part of your group? Well, he rubs off on you. Alpha Academy loses to the New Day. All that momentum with Chad Gable and Otis, and the New Day end up getting the win. I'm like, yeah, Akira Tozawa is fitting in just fine. Lovable losers. We're not pushing Alpha Academy right now. We're not giving Chad Gable any legitimate shot at the IC title, but we're going to put Tozawa and do comedy and put smiles in everybody's faces like, oh, they're on TV. Who cares? It's fun. And I'm fine with that. There's a lot of people that don't understand that. Oh, I'm making Chad Gable lose because he's not. They're giving you the perception that he's a winner. They're giving you perception that some people are in the hunt and they're not in the hunt. But that's the magic of pro wrestling. If you could make fans believe that somebody's in the hunt and they're really not in the hunt, you're kind of doing something right. You know, you go back to the Attitude Era days. I'm not bringing up examples now. You could go revisit it. But, you know, there were several people, quite a few people who were getting pushed. They would have great storylines and they would be in contention for titles. And here you look back on them like, holy shit, that person never won a title. Holy shit, that person won the title for how long? And you realize like, wow, you know, they kind of made us think that this person was a legitimate, you know, contender. And that's just perception. But Chad Gable is awesome. I hope they get those tag titles back. Just right now, WWE, unfortunately, and I mean this, WWE, unfortunately, has set the bar so high with their titles that they're not going to play hot potato at mid-carders. I mean, if you really, even the NXT Women's Championship right now, they have to, and the North American Championship, like they have to put main roster to elevate the perception of the value of it. You look at all of their championships right now. Rey Mysterio's title might be the least, how do I say this, valued? But if Rey dropped it to anybody right now, I don't think it would be a big deal. But the tag titles, who has held it for the past 2+ years? You look at the World Heavyweight Championship, you look at the Universal Championship, you look at the Undisputed Championship, you look at the WWE Championship, you look at the Intercontinental Championship. They don't have any titles. Maybe the women's tag titles at the most. So they're going to give you the perception that some people are in contention, but they're really not. We get a backstage segment, and Becky Lynch is interviewed. And listen, when XIA Li, I've always been a fan of. When she was in NXT, I thought still, in the last 10 years, I think she's had the greatest vignettes hyping up, you know, her WWE debut or WWE return and NXT. When they had her being tortured and then they did that superhero stuff, you know, my family abused by landlord, I kick ass. I thought there was so much effort put into that and it went nowhere. And that's not her fault. But as we've said for the last 2 weeks, XIA Li is the fool right now. If you think in storyline, Becky Lynch is the NXT Women's Champion, and she's going to take on Lyra Valkyria at Halloween Havoc. And then Indy Hartwell, a couple of weeks ago, loses a 3-way for a title shot, and she gets the title shot anyway. And then 2 weeks ago, you have XIA Li show up at Becky Lynch. Becky, when you give me shot? And Becky's like, anytime, any place. On my terms. And she walks off. And we're like, what the fuck was that? So what happens? Tonight, Becky Lynch is cutting a promo in the back. Now, even if you're on video, you need a magnifying glass to see this. But if you look in the center of your screen, and trust me, for my audio family out there, you don't have to look at this. XIA Li is all the way in the back. I honestly thought that was Nikki Cross for a minute because of all that. She's doing a Nikki Cross. She walks by, she stares, she look at Becky. No, not my time. Not on my terms. On my terms. So Becky cuts the promo. She's going to have the match with Indy Hartwell. Indy Hartwell never lost the title. That's why she's giving her the title. I come to Dallas, Texas. I come here to fight. Tomorrow I'm going to take on Lyra at Halloween Havoc. I'm a fighting champion. I'm going to bring this belt to new heights. And XIA Li, no, on my terms. When is your terms? More on that in a moment. We get a backstage segment also with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, Drew, I saw you last week with Rhea. I mean, this obsession that Rhea Ripley's just talking to wrestlers. And as he's talking about Drew, talking about Crown Jewel, and he's bringing up how he saw Drew talking to Rhea Ripley, what ends up happening? But Rhea Ripley shows up. Seth looks at her, what would I want with you? And Rhea looks at him and she says, right now you are just a world champion. But if you join us, you will be the world champion. That, yes, in the past, the Judgment Day made deals with the bloodline, but alliances could change. And if you join us, Damian Priest will cash in on someone else. And then we can all hold gold. Even if Damian doesn't cash in, they would still all hold gold. But Seth just looks at her and he laughs. He walks off. More on that later with Rhea Ripley. But Rhea Ripley trying to give a little sweet talk. Please, they did it with so many people, and most recently Jey Uso. You're going to join the Judgment Day? Nobody's joining the Judgment Day. AJ, you're going to join the Judgment Day? Blah, blah, blah. You're going to join the Judgment Day? Jey Uso, you're going to join the Judgment Day? Sammy, you want to join the Judgment Day? Nobody's joining the Judgment Day. It's getting old. If anything should come out of this, have Becky Lynch go up to Rhea Ripley and say, stay away from my husband. And start building up a fucking feud with Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley. Because everybody else right now, I'm not feeling it with the 5-way match. The 5-way match at Crown Jewel is going to be excellent. The 5-way match at Crown Jewel is going to be excellent. And I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but since we're talking about Rhea Ripley, let's talk about it now. Tonight they did the contract signing. And, this was a little bit odd in the beginning because each woman, except for Nia Jackson, Rhea Ripley, we'll get to them. Each woman comes up, their music hits, they hit the ring, they sign the contract immediately. You don't have all 5 women all looking at each other and they're passing around the contract and everybody signing it at the same time. Like Raquel hits the ring, smiling, signs it, walks off. Shayna Baszler signs it, walks off. Nia Jax hits the ring, and Nia, just taking in a little bit of the booze and, kind of trolling a little bit. She ultimately signs the contract. And then Rhea Ripley comes out. And, I enjoyed this segment because it was meant to be annoying. But people online, oh my God, you would have thought they were constipated for 2 weeks, how angry they got at Nia Jax. Rhea Ripley hits the ring and she's on the rampway and she feels a little disrespected. Adam Pearce putting her in a 5-way and the crowd popping for her. They're chanting for her. And she kind of shoots the crowd down a little bit, but the crowd, when her music hit, the fucking crowd popped. And we've been talking about this for a month now. Rhea Ripley's one of those rare people that is insanely over with the fans, but could say a couple of words and get them all to boo her at the same time. And that's pretty special. But she says, in the end, the Crown Jewel, mommy will remain on top. And then we get a little bit of falling off the rails. Nia Jax is on the mic, and just to annoy everyone, she says it 3 times. She says, oh, I get it. You want me to take out Zoe Stark. Oh, I get it. You want me to take out Shayna Baszler. You get it, Shayna Baszler. Oh, you want me to... And she's just pissing everybody off with her nasal, sound, her voice. The crowd is, and the net just shitting her, and WWE fucking loves it. They love it. And yeah, it's kind of like a reverse Marina Shafir. You know, she should have went up to each one and said, you know me, you know me, you know me. But then she looks at Raquel Rodriguez, who is from Texas, and they are in Texas, and she takes a shot at Texas. The next thing you know, Raquel Rodriguez and Nia Jax are having a fucking brawl in the ring. Nobody gives a shit too much about Zoe Stark, with all due respect. For me, I'm not feeling it so far. Very weird how everything with her and Trish ended. It feels like it should have been the reverse. Zoe should have remained the heel and Trish should have been babyface again, but they had Zoe lay Trish out and Zoe was supposed to be the babyface and it kind of backfired. But you had this massive brawl and pull apart with Raquel Rodriguez and Nia Jax, and Rhea Ripley's outside the ring laughing up a storm. She's loving every minute of it. And I guess this is going to lead to a Raquel Rodriguez Nia Jax feud in the near future. And I'm buying in for that. You know, bigger women, and I don't mean, you know, not in a negative way, but, you know, very intimidating, powerful women. And, you know, they definitely should. We might get that next week on Raw. They did not announce that match for Raw next week. We could very well get that match on Raw next week. But Rhea Ripley does not sign the contract, I might add. That happened a little bit later on. And I got to pull up my picture. Later on, Nick Aldis happened to be there. We'll get into Nick Aldis in a second. But later on, Miz is with Adam Pearce. And Miz, you know, feels a little bit disrespected as well. And he's saying, Nick Aldis gets it. Nick Aldis recognizes who I am and blah, 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 this and that. And Adam Pearce, if you've paid close attention, everyone, the Miz, who was it? Who was it that was getting interrupted? Oh, it was the Baron Corbin segments. The Miz is getting the Baron Corbin segments right now. Do you remember earlier this year, every time Baron Corbin cut a promo on WWE television, not NXT, but WWE television, and like I think Byron Saxton would say, oh, something's going on. We have to cut this interview short. And then Baron Corbin the week after would start a promo and then somebody else would show up and Baron Corbin, shoosh, get out of here. They're doing the same thing with The Miz right now. And what happens tonight? While The Miz is professing his worth to Adam Pearce, Rhea Ripley shows up and signs the contract. The Miz is just looking like, you're going to interrupt me as well? And he's got this look on his face like, what the fuck? Rhea signs it. She puts her hand in Miz's face, similar like when The Miz goes, when my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. And she walks off. And The Miz, once again, a little bit jaded. Speaking of Nick Aldis, and we'll be quick about this. We talked last week about Team Raw, Team SmackDown. Tonight, after Nick Aldis had Adam Pearce and Jey Uso escorted out of the building for SmackDown Friday, Nick Aldis shows up today. Nick Aldis, hey, he wants to apologize to Adam Pearce. He said, look, rookie mistake. I just wanted to establish authority on SmackDown. I don't want to tarnish our relationship. He offers his hand. Adam Pearce shakes his hand. And Adam Pearce tells Nick Aldis, hey, why don't you stick around tonight and see how the flagship operates? Nick Aldis accepts. He'll stay. He'll hang out. As Nick Aldis walks off, Adam Pearce requests to someone that whatever their security is for tonight, double it. Double it. So that was Nick Aldis. Later on, we got another segment, which I thought was so cute. It was so cute. Adam Pearce catches Nick Aldis talking to Katana Chance and Caden Carter. And Adam Pearce is like, I didn't tell you you could talk to my superstars. And Nick Aldis is like, oh, it's just an innocent conversation. I'm thinking to myself, what could Nick Aldis have really said to both of them? Hi, who are you? Oh, you two look so cute. You're short and tiny. But Adam Pearce, not too thrilled about Nick Aldis. And they get a little bit friction as, you know, Nick Aldis walks off. He's like, look, You know, you've had a bad night, Adam Pearce. Why, I don't know, so to speak, you know, if you think about it. But Adam Pearce, you know, he's having a little bit of friction with Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis agrees to leave. So as Nick Aldis is walking off, we get this. I got to pull it up. We get, here it is. Nikki Cross, who is back on, what term could we use in 2023 to be a little bit politically correct? A little bit of, you know, chamomile? Can we use chamomile? You know, we can't use the X word from back in the day. We can't use the S word that rhymes with Roma. She's back on the chamomile tea. She's walking around like a fucking zombie. Hopefully she hasn't hung out in Philadelphia, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Kensington. We should call it Kensington Cross. That's actually, I think that's the nickname. We've made so many nicknames over the years that somehow other podcasters end up using as well. We're going to call it Kensington Cross. She walks by looking like a zombie, and Adam Pearce looks at the camera and says, I need a drink. Yes, we do need a drink. Because earlier in the night, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven come out. Did Tegan Knox really get injured? I hope that is not the case. They said that Tegan Knox got injured. Because remember, we were going to have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven versus Tegan Knox and Natalya on NXT, possibly for next week's Halloween Havoc. Don't know if that match is now off. But tonight, it's Chelsea Green and Piper Niven versus Natalya and a surprise opponent. Now, yeah, the net thought Jade Cargill, which God bless them. I think they just want to get attention and hits and views. You know, all that idiocy. Jade Cargill is not going to debut, teaming up with Natalya, with all due respect. But what ends up happening is we get Nikki Cross. And for some reason, yeah, maybe she did visit Kensington. She's in the ring. She's got no reaction whatsoever. Natalya's getting her ass kicked, and she just walks off like she's on another planet. And what ends up happening is Piper Niven pins Natalya, and nobody gives it. This is a perfect screenshot. This is pretty much what we had. Natalya got her ass kicked, and Nikki Cross almost like, yeah, I'm just not going to wrestle. I'm just going to stand there and look like a moron. This is like the continuation of what they wanted to do like 8 months ago. What is she going to do? Like suddenly she's going to be a burst of energy and the crowd's going to pop, and 2 weeks later, people are just going to forget about her again. That, with all due respect, was a hot mess tonight. That was just a hot mess. I don't think people really gave a shit about it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was stupid, to be honest with you. Now we could get back to XIA Li. Becky Lynch tonight successfully retaining the NXT Women's Championship over Indi Hartwell. Lyra Valkyria was sitting at ringside during the match. She is going to face Becky tomorrow at Halloween Havoc. This was a great match. Indi Hartwell got enough time to show the WWE Universe she actually could work. Now, when we talked about the PWI 250 over the weekend, you know, Indi Hartwell, you know, ranked above Raquel Rodriguez and Shayna Baszler and others, was a little bit hysterical, but she can work. You know, it's just that she's not on that level yet. People wanted her to go to the main roster so the way could be reunited and we could see her remarry Dexter Lumis. That was the majority. And when you realize that the majority of the WWE Universe wanted that, tells you that they're not even paying attention to what Indi Hartwell could actually do in the ring. So Becky Lynch retains tonight, and after the match is over, Becky Lynch walks up to the ringside area. She's got a little bit of a stare down with Lyra Valkyria, and as that's going on, something happens with XIA Li. Now, remember last week, I want title shot. Hey, any place, anytime, you name it. On my terms, I walk out. So what happens tonight? After Indi Hartwell loses to Becky Lynch, Indi Hartwell decides, oh, I take my shot. I beat up Candice LeRae instead. She lays out Candice LeRae and she says, that for Indy too. Why is she sending a message to Indy Hartwell? So now, because of that, as a result, instead of Becky Lynch taking on XIA Li, we got next week XIA Li versus Candice LeRae. I mean, is this match only happening because this is the only person that XIA Li could defeat? With all due respect, and honestly, guys, you remember when XIA Li was off SmackDown for about 9 weeks, and I put her on a milk carton, and I said, guys, why are they not using XIA Li? I am a huge fan of XIA Li, but creatively, this is awful. And I'm kind of tired. I brought this up recently, and I'll say it again now. I'm one of the biggest fans of Triple H taking over creative, because one thing you got to give Triple H credit for is he will give certain people enough chances and enough time to try to get themselves over. You got to give him credit for that. He will give someone the chance, at least the chance, to show that they are worthy to get their spot. But, you know, when you're seeing every fucking week, you see that animated file, you know the one I'm talking about, with Triple H. You see the animated file, Triple H going like this. I'm like, no, I'm not smiling. I'm not smiling. This is not good. Does anybody think that Nikki Cross is getting elevated, or XIA Li, or Candice LeRae, or Indy Hartwell? The way, all right, DIY is reformed, but, you know, I don't feel like Johnny Gargano last week got squashed by Ludwig Kaiser in 2 seconds because everybody knows Ludwig Kaiser is going to be branching out. We may even get Ludwig Kaiser versus Gunther in the near future. Even when Bronson Reed said to Kaiser earlier, tell your boss I'm looking for him. And I thought Kaiser was going to say, he's not my boss. But instead, Kaiser told Bronson Reed, tell him yourself. But Ludwig Kaiser, they are setting him up to become a singles star. But you see everybody else right now. I mean, come on. You look at everybody. I mean, Bronson Reed might be the exception to the rule right now. You look at Cameron Grimes. Until he gets the full-blown Brillo pad, the Vanessa Del Rio, you know, crotch look on his chest, and he gets a little bit more of a beard, I mean, he's going to be enhancement talent. That's all he is. Dragon Lee, you know, does anybody have the balls to say, what are they doing with Dragon Lee? He got that memorable match with Dominic, and after that, it's been nothing. So when you show me this animated Triple H thing, I'm rooting for him, but a lot of this stuff is just shit. Just because someone's on TV doesn't mean that it's good. So, XIA Li, yeah, after all of this, she's taking on Candice LeRae. The only person that she'll be able to pin, I might add. Will she end up having a match with Becky? Probably. Probably. But, you know, when you are challenging this person, and then 3 weeks later, you get this person, you obviously did something fucking wrong. That's like you're going to take the prom queen out on a date, and then you end up taking somebody who failed at fucking Weight Watchers, you know, instead. Like, you go from this to this in 2 weeks. All right. Speaking of Bronson Reed, Akira Tozawa, you know, as only Akira Tozawa could do, I want match tonight. And listen, for anybody out there who's a little offended like DT, why are you making fun of the way XIA Li talks or Akira Tozawa? Have you fucking listened to them on TV? I'm not making fun of the fact that they're Japanese or anything like that. That's how they fucking talk on TV. Tozawa goes to Bronson Reed tonight. I want match. And Bronson Reed doesn't want to give it to him. No! I want match. Bronson Reed's like, it's your deathbed. It's your deathbed. So what do you think happens later on? You think Akira Tozawa had any type of a match? No, he gets squashed like a grape. You know, this is Akira Tozawa. You could go 10 years back. Other than the different color hair and the Alpha Academy shirt, it's the same thing. So Bronson Reed wins with a splash and a tsunami on Akira Tozawa. Johnny Gargano tonight taking on Giovanni Vinci. Ludwig Kaiser warns Giovanni Vinci, you better do your job tonight because it reflects on me. So what happens? Giovanni Vinci's at ringside. Gargano's having a match with Vinci. Kaiser tries to get a little involved, and here comes Ciampa. Ciampa chases Kaiser off. And 2.5 minutes later, into the match, Johnny Gargano with the one final beat onto Giovanni Vinci gets the pin. So Johnny Gargano wins in about 2.5 minutes. DIY is back next week. Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser will be taking on DIY. Will that be Ludwig Kaiser's and Giovanni Vinci's final match together as a tag team? Gunther cannot be happy about what he saw tonight because Ludwig Kaiser failed. So now we get into some better stuff. Better stuff. Shinsuke Nakamura. I like that they're keeping this going with him. But obviously now Shinsuke Nakamura needs a new feud. The problem is we don't know who he's going to feud with. So Shinsuke Nakamura cuts one of his pre-recorded promos in a dark room with a lot of red accent to it. He says he was happy to give Ricochet his experience, but now he wants to find an opponent who will inspire the yet-to-be-seen self within him. Maybe a little bit too much on words. I think the casual wrestling fan will be like, huh? I was about, who's next for me to kick their ass? But that's what Shinsuke said, and Shinsuke says, release the expression still trapped in my dreams. Shinsuke Nakamura talking a little, he's almost like the Japanese Bob Backlund, just without the very fancy words. So now we got to see who Shinsuke Nakamura is going to feud with. It's probably not Ricochet anymore. Because tonight, I don't get it. You probably know what I'm talking about. Samantha Irvin. We know how beautiful she is. If you follow social media, every couple of days, you're greeted to some very, very attractive photos of her. If you follow her on social media, she posts some beautiful photos. Nothing, raunchy, but we know who Samantha Irvin is, how talented she is, the way she announces people, we fucking love it. I honestly got to be frank, and I kind of like her more than I did with Lillian Garcia. Howard Finkel, it's totally different animal. But I watched on social media tonight boatloads of people who act like they have never seen Samantha Irvin's body before. And I'm not trying to be sexual right now. I don't mean that in that way. I'm just saying, like, if you saw the reaction on social media tonight, you would have thought that these people never, ever saw her before. Because what happens tonight, we had a little surprise early this evening that Logan Paul was going to be making an appearance. Now I'm not so sure. We'll get to. I saw some of you writing someone else. We'll get to it. I have it on the queue. Logan Paul. Over the weekend, there's a lot of concern that Logan Paul may become your next United States champion. I think after tonight, it might be a little bit, you might rest a little bit easier, because now it seems like Dominic Mysterio and Ricochet may get involved in Logan Paul versus Rey Mysterio at Crown Jewel. Because Logan Paul, he's on Raw tonight. And honestly, guys, we were all saying, why is he on Raw tonight? He's getting a United States Championship match, which is a SmackDown title. Why is he on Raw tonight? So he comes out, he repeats the same shit that he cut on Friday about beating this jerk off overseas last week, and he's so much of a loser. Now he's not even in his league anymore, blah, 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 blah. And he brings up that he's going to beat up Rey Mysterio, and, you know, he's a deadbeat dad. And obviously, whose music is going to hit? So as Logan Paul's cutting this promo, and you're saying to yourself, why is he on Raw still? I don't get it. Dominic Mysterio comes out. And if you were tired of WWE amping up the crowd noise when Dominic talks tonight, it was at a comical level. It was actually intentionally to be funny. It was so loud, you couldn't even hear Dominic talk. But when Logan Paul would talk right after Dom, they would turn the volume all the way down. And then you realize how little the crowd was actually reacting in the building. But Dominic Mysterio comes out. Logan Paul finally acted a little bit more as a full-blown, unselfish heel, telling the fans to shut up and show some respect for Dominic Mysterio. And basically, what happened in this segment, like I said, it's to set up what's going to go down at Crown Jewel. Because after Dominic says what he says, Logan Paul focuses on Samantha Irvin. Now, we remember during the latter stages of the Attitude Era when they tried to make Lillian Garcia an actual character. She feuded with Howard Finkel for a little while. I even think she might have feuded, I don't know if it was Stacy Keibler or Trish Stratus, but they had her involved in a couple of things, and it some points it felt a little uncomfortable. And tonight, having Samantha Irvin kind of being a character, and obviously this is to set up Crown Jewel and nothing more. But Logan Paul shouts out Samantha Irvin, gives her props. He says that the fans should give her flowers. And, you know, he wants her to go in the ring. He invites her in the ring, and Dominic Mysterio is still there, so she gets in the ring. And here's, like I said, where the internet is blowing up, and they're like, oh my God, she's hot. You look at that body, look at the outfit. I'm like, are you ever fucking on social media? What hole have you been in the last couple of years? So she's in the ring, and Logan Paul wants her to give us a preview of what's going to happen at Crown Jewel. He wants her to announce Logan Paul as the winner and new WWE United States champion. She doesn't want to do it. So what ends up happening, Ricochet shows up. Samantha Irvin exits the ring as quickly as she possibly can. He hits a couple of shots to Logan Paul. He nails Dominic Mysterio. He's about to hit the shooting star on Dominic Mysterio, but Logan Paul pulls Dominic outside the ring. So Logan Paul and Dominic Mysterio exit. And the whole reason for this segment tonight, to me, is so Dominic is got Logan Paul's back. Even if they don't announce it, Dominic will have Logan Paul's back, and I think Ricochet will show up at Crown Jewel also and spoil the fun. If that does not happen, then Dominic Mysterio could very well cause Logan Paul to win that championship. Because remember, if you tune into Saturday's show, you're thinking what I'm thinking already. As of right now, in Rochester, New York, on November 4th, the same night as Crown Jewel, there's going to be a WWE house show. And the main event, or the semi-main event, is Gunther defending the Intercontinental Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet. Could Gunther be Ricochet's next opponent? Maybe they turn that match into a one-on-one. That may end up being Shinsuke challenging Gunther. Remember, it's not just baby faces fighting Gunther. Bronson Reed, full-blown heel, took on Gunther last week. So we could very well see a change. Maybe Ricochet ends up working Crown Jewel. I don't know. I don't work for WWE. By next week, we will know. But that could be a change to be continued. But this segment tonight was definitely for something happening at Crown Jewel. You do not align or reintroduce Dominic Mysterio with Logan Paul unless there's a reason behind it. So we'll wait and see what happens. Now, speaking of Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Gunther, we have a good idea who is going to be facing Gunther in the very near future. And I'm sure a lot of you figured it out tonight. I don't want to say that the Viking Raiders are officially dead as a tag team. We don't know what's going on with Eric. We don't know, to the extent of when he's going to be returning, if he's going to be returning. But tonight, they solidified IVAR as a bona fide single star. They did this whole, video, segment with the Vikings and Fire and Valhalla, crowning him almost like a god. IVAR is getting elevated for now. And I say for now because will he have a great match against Gunther? Absolutely. Where IVAR is on the food chain 6 months from now, 3 months from now, that remains to be seen. He is absolutely talented as fuck. But in the land of the giants, how does he leapfrog so many people that are in line for titles? If you are fine with IVAR not being a champion, enjoy it, because he will get opportunities. We might end up getting IVAR versus Bronson Reed versus Gunther in the near future. But IVAR versus Gunther, that is happening. And it's going to happen sooner than you think. So, great segment tonight by IVAR. Feel a little bad for Eric, but if Eric is out injured and just can't compete for the foreseeable future, then no harm, no foul. But if IVAR really, really gets his ass over even further, and, there's a difference between impressing and getting over. When you pay close attention to these ratings and you see a couple 100,000 viewers tuning out for your matches repeatedly, something is wrong there. There's always going to be a group of people that are going to love someone. I feel bad for using this as an example, but there was a small yet very loud group of people online that insisted that Dana Brooke is a major star. There's always going to be a group of people that are going to love someone, that are going to emphasize and overhype someone. But in the overall scope of things, would WWE be damaged if IVAR was let go or Bronson Reed was let go? They'd be damaged if Gunther was let go. You look at certain people and you say to yourself, if that person was never on WWE television again, yeah, they would be missed. But would they be damaged? Like, oh, that's a hole, that's a void, that's going to be hard to fill. No. Drew McIntyre tonight. Drew McIntyre, as I use the play on words, going a little insane in the membrane. He earlier in the night, Drew McIntyre sees Jey Uso. And all Drew McIntyre basically says is, if you weren't on Raw right now, this match with Sami Zayn would not be happening tonight. And anything that happens, it's on you. So we got the match, Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre, and this was great. We had some even chance at some points. Let's go Sami, let's go Drew. When Drew was chopping the shit out of Sami Zayn, you had fans, chanted one more time. But in the end, Drew McIntyre still over with the crowd, but Sami Zayn over big time. One point, Sami was tossed over the announcer's table onto the chairs. We go to commercial. Later on, Sami Zayn gets a little bit of offense back. He ends up diving onto Drew McIntyre. And this was the first time tonight where we had "This is awesome" chants. They had a spectacular match. And towards the end of the match, Sami Zayn gets a little bit of the upper hand, and he's teasing the haluva kick. And before he could nail the haluva kick, Rhea Ripley's music hits. And Rhea Ripley comes out. Now, remember last week when Drew McIntyre was seen with Rhea Ripley in the back. So Rhea comes out and Sami Zayn gets distracted. So what ends up happening? Similar when Jey Uso got distracted with the Judgment Day, just like when Kofi Kingston got distracted. If you notice the pattern, someone is always being distracted. So what happens? That distraction leads to a Claymore. Drew McIntyre gets the win. And after the match is over, Rhea Ripley smiling from ear to ear, storyline-wise, hey, she did a little solid for Drew McIntyre. She caused the distraction. But what Drew does is Drew just walks off. He doesn't even acknowledge her, pun intended. And she's got this look on her face like, oh, you didn't say anything, but I know that I helped you tonight. But that match, probably the best match of the night, with Jey Uso and Damian Priest coming a close second. But a little bit later on, we had a little confrontation in the back with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. And they both agree that the Judgment Day does not get into their business at Crown Jewel. And Seth Rollins says to Drew McIntyre, may the best man win. And Drew McIntyre looks at Seth and says, he will. So Drew McIntyre predicted victory at Crown Jewel. And as Michael Cole said earlier tonight, that the only way Drew McIntyre could get past the bloodline business and what happened last year is that he's got to beat Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. So overall, some great segments tonight. Your main event, if you've watched the Judgment Day versus Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Sami and Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes, Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens and Jey Uso, or a combination thereof, you basically got that tonight. It was a fun match. Crowd enjoyed it. But when we go back at the ratings next week, we're going to realize that at the end of hour 3, it's usually the lowest of the night. This was a fun match, but it was your typical interaction with Jey Uso and the Judgment Day over the last 6 weeks. They had a great one-on-one match. No Dominic Mysterio at ringside. No Rhea Ripley at ringside. Finn Balor at ringside. Finn Balor would come into play towards the end of the match. Finn Balor, and this is where it really went off the rails a little bit. Damian Priest hits a flatliner. The crowd was chanting, we want tables. So they weren't going to improv and use tables, but Damian Priest at least gives Jey Uso a flatliner on the announcer's table, I guess as a consolation prize. But Jey Uso, Damian Priest immediately after exchanging kicks. Damian Priest sets up the Razor's Edge. Jey Uso breaks out of it. And Jey Uso gets the upper hand, hits the Uso splash. This is where it turned into a hot mess. And if you go back and watch it, you'll see it. Finn Balor was supposed to hit the ring sooner. Up to this point, no Finn Balor interference at all. It's just Damian Priest, Jey Uso. Jey Uso hits the splash. Jey goes for the pin. We don't hear the referee going 1, 2, 3. We look, the referee also was not pulled out of the ring, was not distracted. What happened was Finn Balor ran down to the ring too late. And when Jey went for the pin, Finn Balor was still halfway down the entrance ramp. Why, in storyline, why is the referee paying attention to the rampway? It is legal to someone to run down the rampway. The camera work and the timing was bad. And Jey Uso goes for the pin. We don't hear a count because the referee is busy watching Finn Balor run down the rampway. So we don't get a count. Then Damian Priest distracts the referee. Finn Balor grabs Jey Uso's leg. That allows Damian Priest to hit the South of Heaven and gets the 1, 2, 3. The finish was crappy, but in the end, the crowd went home happy because after the match was over, Finn Balor and Damian Priest put in the boots to Jey Uso, and they teased that they're going to injure him as well. They go to get chairs, and they're going to do to Jey Uso what they did to Cody Rhodes earlier. What happens? Cody Rhodes' music hits. Cody limps down the rampway, and he nails Finn Balor. He hits Damian Priest in the back with the chair. He goes to give a little receipt to Damian Priest, injure his leg for what he did earlier, but Finn Balor pulls Damian Priest out of the ring. We get a little bit of a stare down, and we go off the air. So in the end, Cody Rhodes makes the save. He is well enough that he should be good to go for Crown Jewel. And that's how we went off the air tonight. You know, not a bad episode of Raw. It was actually smooth, but it did have its moments that, you know, a little bit less to be desired. Next week, they're advertising, as we said earlier, Candice LeRae versus XIA Li. Next week, we are getting DIY versus Imperium. We're also getting next week Ricochet versus Dominic Mysterio, and Seth Rollins will be taking on JD McDonough. That'll be interesting to see what Drew McIntyre does. Does Drew McIntyre take part in beating down on JD McDonough? Do we get a Judgment Day? You kind of see it now, right? Judgment Day gets involved. DQ victory for Seth Rollins. Drew McIntyre's music hits. He comes out. Everybody thinks Drew's going to make the save. Stops on the rampway, looks at Seth, turns around, walks off. That's the go home to Crown Jewel. People like, wow, he didn't make the save. Like he just turned his back on Seth. Crowd will probably boo the shit out of Drew McIntyre for doing that next week. But that's what we have set for next week. All right, before we go any further, right now, officially for Crown Jewel is Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. Rhea Ripley defending the Women's World Championship against Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Raquel Rodriguez in a 5-way. Roman Reigns versus LA Knight for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Rey Mysterio defending the United States Championship against Logan Paul, and Cody Rhodes taking on Damian Priest. Expect at least two matches to be added. We'll see if Bianca Belair ends up getting them rematch against Bayley. We'll see what gets developed this Friday on SmackDown. Tomorrow, NXT Halloween Havoc, very quickly, because I know we're running a little late here. Tony D'Angelo and Stax will absolutely retain those tag team championships against Chase University. As much as I am a fan of Tony D'Angelo for obvious reasons, their tag team title run has been an embarrassment. I think they've only defended that title 3 times over several months. I mean, it's just, the titles are just irrelevant right now. I mean, you look at the tag team division, you understand why. I'm a little bit surprised Los Lotharios is not getting an opportunity right now. They'll probably feud with the Creed brothers. Maybe they'll have a match next week. But yeah, they've only defended the title 3 or 4 times. It hasn't been much. I mean, there's been a lot of distraction, but they will retain the titles tomorrow against Chase University. We have, I think this is the Devil's Playground match. It's going to be Kiana James versus Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez needs a win. There's 2 women fighting tomorrow that need a win. Roxanne Perez is one of them. Kiana James is doing great. She's getting over as that heel. She's finding her groove, and she's still extremely new. I think people, you know, when you focus on Trick Williams, and we were talking about this yesterday in detail, people would be shocked as to how many matches Trick Williams has had in his career. It is so few, you would be shocked. You would be like, there's no way. Kiana James, same thing. She has not had many matches in her career. But right now, Roxanne Perez, she needs a little momentum. She has really no big feuds going on right now. She just had a little thing with Blair Davenport that kind of was a little underwhelming. I think Roxanne Perez defeats Kiana James in the Devil's Playground match. My friends, if Gigi Dolan dyes her hair black, people have not picked up on it yet. I have a side-by-side picture that I'm going to show everyone this weekend. I don't have it with me right now. If you look at Gigi Dolan, the way she has her hair right now, and she's lost about 10 or 15 pounds. I don't know if people have noticed that. If you take her hair and run it through Photoshop and dye it dark brown and put her next to JC Jane, they look like sisters. It would blow you away. All you do is just dye Gigi Dolan's hair dark and change the lipstick color. And I swear to you, you put her next to JC Jane, they look like sisters right now. The way she has her hair. Tomorrow, Blair Davenport takes on Gigi Dolan. Blair Davenport, to me, I think she's next in line next to Lyra Valkyria to get to the main roster. I think Blair Davenport gets this win tomorrow. Blair Davenport, she deserves a little bit more attention than she's getting right now. And again, that PWI 250 over the weekend, I don't remember what number she was, but it was pathetic. It was pathetic. I think Marina Shafir was ranked better than Blair Davenport. But Blair Davenport, I'm going with her tomorrow. And I also think this is like a Falls Count Anywhere match. So this is not going to be a straight-up regular wrestling match. I'm going with Blair Davenport to get the win. Now, tomorrow's the semifinals for the women's breakout tournament. My picks are still in it. Before this tournament started, I said your finals is going to be Kalani Jordan versus Lola Vice. Tomorrow, those matches are going down. We have Carmen Petrovic against Lola Vice. I'm going with Lola Vice. And on the opposite side, you got Kalani Jordan versus Santino Morella's daughter, Ariana Grace. I'm going with Kalani Jordan to win that as well. Your finals are going to be Lola Vice versus Kalani Jordan. And as much as I think Kalani Jordan is NXT's favorite right now, Lola Vice, I think, is going to get it. Valerie Loretta has killed it over the last year. We look back a year ago to Tiffany Stratton and now. Just imagine this. A year ago, Tiffany Stratton knew how to wrestle. She just didn't know how to do it well. A year ago, Valerie Loretta was MMA fighting. And to see how easy she has made this look, your finals are going to be Lola Vice versus Kalani Jordan. We don't have to predict the winner of the tournament yet because that'll happen next week. So when we do predictions next week, then I'll make it official. But right now, it's going to be Lola Vice and Kalani Jordan going to the finals. Tomorrow, Lexis, do not call me Brian Pillman, King makes his in-ring debut for NXT. Lexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr. We wonder who he's going to face. My guess, it's going to be Dante Chen, and I think he's going to beat the balls off of whoever he faces tomorrow. The big question is, how will he look? If he's denouncing his dad, Brian Pillman Jr., well, you don't look like him. You don't dress like him. You don't have the hair like him. You don't have the facial hair like him. Will Lexis King have a totally different look tomorrow? Boa and Dante Chen are two totally different people. They may look similar. Dante Chen looks like if you took Boa and he had sex with a young Sean Waltman. You ever look at Dante Chen? He looks like a very young Sean Waltman, went to Vietnam and had sex with someone, and the birth child is Dante Chen. Just saying. You look at Dante Chen, he reminds me of Sean Waltman. He reminds me of an Asian version of Sean Waltman. And that's a compliment. I like Dante Chen. He's good. So this might be the last time that we see Lexis King looking like this. And tomorrow, your main event, Becky Lynch defending the NXT Women's Championship against Lyra Valkyria. I personally think you do not have Becky Lynch retain just so she can have a match with XIA Li. Lyra Valkyria, I don't think is going to get a rematch against Becky Lynch. So I am going to go against the grain, even though the odds are that Becky Lynch is going to win. I am going with Lyra Valkyria to defeat Becky Lynch and become NXT Women's Champion. Then you could have XIA Li return to NXT, let XIA Li feud with Lyra Valkyria, let XIA Li feud with Becky Lynch on a Raw with no title on the line. But I'm going to go with Lyra to win. I know everybody and their mother is predicting Becky because it's Becky. And my gut tells me Becky will retain as well. But sooner or later, she's got to pass the torch. You look at that NXT roster, Lyra Valkyria is the one that should have the torch passed to by Becky Lynch. Not Tiffany Stratton, not Nikita Lyons if she returns, not Blair Davenport, Gigi Dolan, JC Jane, anybody you want to come up with. To me, I feel like Lyra should be the one to get it from Becky. I think years from now, when Lyra becomes a bigger star, I think this will be a moment that people will remember. I'm going to go with Lyra to beat Becky. Again, going against the grain, but that's what I do. That is what I do. So, let's wrap this up with a little This Week in Wrestling history. Oh, God. All right. This is actually the full synopsis for This Week in Wrestling history. And the reason why I brought the full synopsis this time around is because if there was ever a week, if you never tuned into any of these shows, listen, these were the hardest shows I've ever done in my 27 years doing this. The history shows were the hardest shows I've ever done, ever. Because I used to every week listen to about 30 hours of wrestling matches and pick the ones that were the most memorable, pick moments, review history, research history, sift out, things that people wouldn't really care about, pick up moments that people forgot about or maybe didn't even know about, and try to give everyone 3-4 hours a week of this. Hardest work I've ever done, but I'm proud of it because we still look back on it and there's amazing moments that people still say to me to this day, I had no idea this ever existed. So I got a couple of audio clips for you right now. I promise you will enjoy them. Nothing is awful. And there's also one TNA moment. And this is dedicated to Don West and Mike Tenay, who were just put in the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. But just to show you a couple of pictures before we play some audio clips, this week in history is the memorable Texas Bull Rope match between superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes. This was the feud that we thought, WWE wants you to think that Dusty did not finish the story in the WWF in the 70s. This was the feud. Also this week in history, the Ultimate Warrior's WWF debut is the Dingo Warrior. You'll have to tune in to see why that Mount Rushmore of WWF stars is there. But just to bring up Dusty Rhodes for a minute, this is the anniversary of Hard Times. Now, I have the promo, but I'm going to give you a special treat. I'm going to play the Hard Times promo. It's quick. It's only a minute and a half. Then I'm going to play you another promo that a majority of you out there have never heard before, that Dusty Rhodes also cut, that still blows my mind that no one out there ever talks about that promo. It's not as good as Hard Times, but it's one that people should have talked about over the years, but they never did. I found it. I'm going to share it with you. But this week in history, Dusty Rhodes talking Hard Times.
I got the opportunity to see a real Wolf champion. And I'm proud of you and thank God I have you. And I love you. Love you!
The American Dream, Dusty.
Hold on. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all know that Dusty Rhodes has been injured. Well, we want to welcome back tonight Dusty Rhodes for his first interview since his injury. Here is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty, your fans welcome you back, man.
First of all, I would like to thank the many fans throughout this country that wrote cards and letters to Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, while I was down. Secondly, I want to thank Jim Crockett Promotions for waiting and taking the time because I know how important it was. Starrcade 85 it is to the wrestling fans, it is to Jim Crockett Promotions. And Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, with that weight, got what I wanted. Ric Flair, the world's heavyweight champion. I don't have to say a lot more about the way I feel about Ric Flair. No respect, no honor. There is no honor among thieves in the first place. He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work and got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time. And Ric Flair, you put hard times on this country by taking Dusty Rhodes out. That's hard time. And we all had hard times together. I admit I don't look like the athlete of the day supposed to look. My belly's just a little big. My hand is just a little big. But brother, I am bad and they know I'm bad. And there were 2 bad people. One was John Wayne and he's dead, brother. And the other one's right here. Nature Boy Ric Flair. The world's heavyweight title belongs to these people. I'm gonna reach out right now. I want you at home to know my hand is touching your hand for this gathering of the biggest body of people in this country, in this universe, all over the world now, reaching out because the love that was given me, and this time I will repay you now because I will be the next world's heavyweight champion on this hard time blues. Dusty Rhodes Tour 85 and Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Let me leave you with this. One way to hurt Ric Flair is to take what he cherishes more than anything in the world. That's the world's heavyweight title. I'm gonna take it. I've been there twice. This time when I take it, Daddy, I'm gonna take it for you. Let's gather for it. Don't let me down now, because I came back for you, for that man up there that died 10, 12 years ago and never got the opportunity to see a real world champion. And I'm proud of you and thank God I have you. And I love you. Love you!
The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes fans.
I'll leave you with this. We're not going off the air yet, but I'll leave you with this. Mark it down on your calendar. The SmackDown before WrestleMania. You're going to get a promo like that from Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is going to cut one in a this pressure. He knows that weekend before Mania, he's going to have to cut hard times. He's going to have to dedicate it to his dad. You hear that at the end, he died before he could see him become world champion. Remember that moment. Now, little fun. Everybody talks about, and if you notice that promo, there's a lot more than just the hard times part. Whenever they play it, anybody ever plays it to you, they always edit out the beginning and the end. All you just hear is hard times, blah, 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 blah. Did you ever hear Dusty Rhodes talk about the struggle? Now, the audio quality, I always try to get the best quality. Sometimes you could search, you could edit, you could try to boost it. Doesn't always come out very good. Again, this is not as good as Hard Times. If it was, people would remember this than the Hard Times promo. But, everybody talks about this impromptu promo about Hard Times. Before there was Hard Times, there was the struggle.
About a struggle. Life is a struggle, Daddy.
Here you go. All right.
Can you talk about a struggle? Life is a struggle, Daddy. You sitting out there right now, there's a lot of people can't even get out of a wheelchair. That's a struggle. Holly Race, that's a struggle. There's people that's on Skid Row drinking wine. That's a struggle. But right here's a kid that was digging ditches at 8 years old, and now is world heavyweight champion, and that is a struggle. So tonight, in the Omni, in just a few hours, you're going to have a struggle. You're going to meet a struggle. You're going to meet the rap master. You're going to meet 260 pounds of screaming, stealing sex appeal, Jack. Struggles are my life. Struggles are part of my father's life. They were part of my mama's life. And they are part of the American way of life. And tonight, the Omni, it's going to be a struggle to take that belt from me and my people.
You could tune in to the History Show for a little bit more. Yeah, Dusty was only 260 pounds at that time. All right, let's move on. This week in history, a lot of Halloween Havoc memories. A lot of them. That is Eric Bischoff, my friends. If you never saw it, yeah, that top right-hand corner with Cactus Jack and Abby is not memorable. Did you know that Matt Hardy was on WCW TV back in the day? That is Matt Hardy. You have to tune into the History Show to see what that's all about. Continuing on, we got Goldberg and DDP holding the WCW Heavyweight Championship. The greatest Halloween Havoc match of all time, in my opinion. Rey Mysterio taking on Eddie Guerrero. The infamous stabbing incident between Sid Vicious and Arn Anderson happened this week. I know you really can't see it on the bottom all that much, but it is the anniversary of the Main Event Mafia forming. Hulk Hogan joining TNA. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon getting married. Yeah, what is Renee and who is the ghost behind her? You have to tune in. And there you see Katie Vick. Katie Vick, we always remember the funeral home segment. Does anybody remember what happened on Raw the following week?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to put your hands together and give a warm welcome to a cold body, Katie Vick. Gentlemen.
Oh, there's Katie.
Katie.
This is disgusting, King.
It's good to see you. I mean, rough trip. Hey, you look dead tired.
Ah.
Let me help you out of there.
Good grief, King.
Oh, oh God, Katie.
See your panties. Oh.
You're dead heavy. You're like dead weight. Katie,
dead weight.
close your legs. For God's sake. Hey, easy with the hands there. Get in the ring now.
Oh. Could be a little more gentle, but rigor mortis has definitely set in. He's not a gentleman. Oh, look at Katie. She's face down again.
No wonder Kane liked you so much. Come on.
All right, we can move on.
This is somewhat surreal, ladies and gentlemen.
It gets really, really dirty really quick. It gets really, really dirty really quick. But something else I wanted to share with you. This week in history also, as we said earlier, was the NXT debut of Roman Reigns. King Kong Bundy versus Bud Bundy, married with children. We talked about that last night. And you see the TNA championship there. Believe it or not, this week in history, Rhino won the TNA World Championship. And I'm looking at my notes. He had 3 matches, won that championship, and then he lost the belt, I think like 3 days later. But just to remind everyone how great Mike Tenay and Don West were at the time, this is just like a minute and a half of the closing moments of Rhino becoming TNA champion.
Rhino! Whoa! Clothesline. He missed Jarrett, but referee Rudy
knocked him out cold.
Knocked unconscious. Jarrett's got the guitar.
Oh no! Here it goes. Oh, but Rhino saw it coming. He does it, and there's a gore. Gore.
No referee.
Nobody there to count it.
Count 1, 2, 3. He had him pinned, but referee Rudy Charles is down and out.
He's out cold. Get another referee in here. Let's get this thing counted out.
Gail Kim circles the ring. Referee Rudy Charles down. Rhino's got the guitar. Oh, hit him with it.
Oh, listen to the crowd. They want to see this so bad.
Wait a minute, here comes AEW.
Oh no, but think about it. Rhino's got it. He's going to, another low blow right there by Jarrett.
The associates of Jarrett, Chris Harris and James Storm, America's Most Wanted, distracting Rhino.
Oh, wait a minute, they're setting him up for the Denson.
Not on the table.
Right over the table. Oh, and Jarrett puts him through it.
AEW just hit their patented move. The death sentence on the champ Rhino. Jarrett loves it. Look how confident he is. They roll Rhino back into the bottom rope.
Oh, how is he even going to be able to stand that as the referee slowly getting to his feet? Jarrett going to set him up with the stroke.
And you can see Rhino's out on his feet. That is the stroke.
No, 1, 2, no, no, no.
I still hate that music. Rhino had won. It was still the NWA World Championship, by the way. He won the NWA Championship, and then 2 days later, he lost it to Jeff Jarrett under those circumstances. You remember the Jim Cornette promos that he was cutting at the time on WCW? I think a lot of people forgot that when he would cut those promos, he would also criticize WWF a little bit as well. I'm sure Jim Cornette on his own podcast have told the backstory as far as how these vignettes came about. Yesterday, at the very close of this, the sit down, I was showing everybody this. This is like just a random collectible thing that I have. This is actually sealed in a box still. This is from WWF.com. And this was a talking Steve Austin figure that you would connect to your computer and I guess download sound clips. And it was made for Windows 95 and Windows 98. If you look in the back, it says Windows 95, Windows 98. But at that time, they just started, I think, WWF Bite This. And Jim Cornette had cut a promo for Bite This. And everybody in the IWC was buzzing about it. So they decided, you know what, let's do these clips on Raw. And everybody was buzzing about it on Raw. But it was this WWF Live. People get it. Bite This was years later. Yeah, Lita, Matt Hardy, I get it. People know what I mean. But this week in history, Jim Cornette said this on Raw.
Last night's low-impact aerobic cage match, the subject matter involved allegedly some icons. Let's go to Jim Cornette.
I'm Jim Cornette. I just wonder if any of you are sick and tired as I am of people who claim to be the icon of wrestling. Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper claim to be the icon. Shawn Michaels is the icon that can still go. Bret Hart would claim to be the icon if he wasn't too busy crying about being screwed by the WWF. And I guess Randy Savage is still thinking. Well, Shawn Michaels is still the single most talented athlete in wrestling today inside the ring. But outside, he's an adolescent, obnoxious jerk who takes his tights and goes home if he doesn't get his way. Bret Hart is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but if he'd have been screwed as many times as he claims, he'd have struck oil by now. And Randy Savage is a legend, but let's face it, how many records did Frank Sinatra sell last year? But the pinnacle of this icon garbage came at last night's cage match between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper to determine in their minds only who the real icon is. WCW had the gall to say this is the greatest cage match in history when it was only the greatest in 3 weeks since Hell in the Cell. But here you've got a 46-year-old bald movie star wannabe who looks like Uncle Creepy with a good build taking on a guy with an artificial hip that hadn't wrestled a full schedule in 10 years. It's a tribute to the massive egotism in my mind of both men and an indictment of WCW's promotional policies that this match even took place, much less being the main event when the card was probably the best that WCW is capable of having. By the 10-minute mark, they were sucking wind so bad the first 3 rows passed out of oxygen deprivation. It would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. Well, I'm sick and damn tired of hearing guys claim to be the icon, especially when it usually comes from guys who just didn't know when to quit. Roddy Piper was my idol when I was a teenager, but that was 20 years ago. Hulk Hogan during his best years was 50% media creation, and those are long gone. This match was a slap in the face to every wrestler that takes pride in his profession. And in my mind, no one man is bigger than this sport. But if there is an icon, it would be a man who has great ability inside the ring and professionalism and maturity outside of it. Let's leave all the petty backstabbing I make more money than you BS with the hat check girl and concentrate on talent and attitude. The Undertaker, Ric Flair, and Steve Austin have never claimed to be icons, which means they're big candidates to be just that. And on a personal note to Hulk Hogan, you are a household word, but so is garbage, and it stinks when it gets old too. I'm Jim Cornette, and that's my opinion.
Those were good back then. Those were good because you didn't take shots like that on TV. That was good. There's so much this week in history. I'm looking back at it. Man, there's a lot of shit that went down this weekend. WWE had stopped all the ECW house shows. Man, Batista turning on Rey Mysterio was an awesome moment. Undertaker at UFC 121 making a couple of teases, confronts Brock Lesnar. We got the audio of that. We had the Nexus versus the Nexus this week. Randy Orton joined the Wyatt family. We revisit that with a little bit of audio. Hulk Hogan and Bubba the Love Sponge, they were having a lawsuit against each other. We had Roman Reigns make his NXT debut. The Dudleys winning the WCW tag titles. Stephanie slapping Linda McMahon on TV. A lot of good shit. The awful World Wrestling All-Stars pay-per-view. The Halloween Havocs, like we said, that match with Roddy Piper happened this week in history with Hogan. The following year was Hogan versus The Warrior, I believe, and that sucked as well. And I'm looking, this week in history, Sabu was wrestling in WCW, and the Sheik, his uncle, showed up and threw a fireball in the face of Mr. JL, who was Jerry Lynn under a mask at that time, and as a result, Sabu was canned. Done. I think he was being paid by appearance anyway, but Sabu was done with WCW. Ended up going back to ECW. Might have did a little bit of Japanese work as well. Also, I think it's today in history that Alundra Blaze, remember when she threw the WWF title in the trash? Today, in history, was it 1995? She won that women's championship. So today in history, she won that title only to later on throw it in the trash. That is the last time she ever won that championship. And, it keeps going. Remember the Giant, Paul White, making his WCW debut, and Hulk Hogan threw him off Cobo Hall, threw him off the building. They had the monster truck thing. Happened this week in history. Revisit that. There's so much. Like I said, there's 2 pages of highlights. But that's, I think, how we're going to leave it tonight. Now, don't forget, Wednesday on Dynamite, we have MJF defending the Diamond Ring against Juice Robinson. That is going to open up Dynamite. So they want to make sure MJF breaks $1 million with the Big Bang Theory lead-in. We have the Young Bucks and Hangman Page defending the Ring of Honor Trios Championship against the Hardys, and Isaiah Cassidy making a rare Dynamite appearance. Hikaru Shida defending the Women's Championship against Ruby Soho. Wow, I got the hiccup, sorry. Renee Paquette interviews Chris Jericho. This might be a little dream match for some people out there, minus one person. Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli versus Okada and Orange Cassidy. Hook and Rob Van Dam making his return. And they're in Philly, by the way. So expect some ECW chance. They're going to be taking on John Silver and Alex Reynolds. And Sting will be presented a gift from Tony Khan. And from what we were told, it might be a commemorative AEW World Championship. We'll see. We will know Wednesday. I want to leave you with something that we're going to talk about a little bit more Wednesday also. It's not going to be the focal point of Wednesday, but I wanted to leave you with this because it's a visual and it's not a trolling photo. I see on social media when people like to troll and they'll show pictures of empty arenas when you realize that it's an hour before Dynamite starts or an hour before a WWE event starts. Of course, the building is going to be almost empty. You never see pictures while the wrestlers are in the ring. I want to show you something. And for my audio friends out there, I apologize that you do not see this. But believe me, when I describe it, words are more powerful. This is a picture of Bound for Glory Sunday night in the pay-per-view, the Bound for Glory event. This was Sunday night. If you look at that building, it's not a very big building. Has I would say about 3,000 people approximately in attendance, but full, absolutely full. In fact, they probably turned some people away as well because there's not an empty seat in the house. I am now going to show you a picture of Collision and Battle of the Belts. And the reason why I'm showing you this picture is because the attendance at Collision was almost the same as Bound for Glory. This is the difference of booking a small building and filling it up and booking a giant building and not filling it up. That is a screenshot of Samoa Joe in the ring at Battle of the Belts. That is from a fan who sent it to me via DM. That is from this weekend. They are on the opposite of the hard camera side. They are on a hard camera side, taking a picture facing the other way. As you can see, the entire side of the building is empty except for 2 rows of seats. Now, if you saw that, you would think that only maybe 300 people were in attendance for Collision and Battle of the Belts. They actually drew a few thousand, but you see the difference. Now, look at that picture of Battle of the Belts. And look at this picture of Bound for Glory. Now, you see that. Which building would you want to be in? Unless, you just wanted to go in the rafters and maybe do a couple of deals or maybe get a little intimate with your significant other and nobody's watching, or maybe you just want to, a little privacy. But seriously, does that look depressing or what? Yet they both drew similar attendances. This is why we talked about it briefly yesterday, but we're going to have a very serious conversation about it. AEW cannot make the same mistakes that TNA did 12 years ago, 10 years ago. They were booking 10,000 seat buildings and only seating 2,000. It's fine when you have a billionaire that just is fine hemorrhaging money, pissing money away, but that is not good. That's a not good visual. That's not, you cannot go on the Dan Liebertard show. I was going to say something else that rhymed with tard, but you can't go on the Dan Liebertard show and then get away with saying, oh, we've had some of the most amazing, shows and pay-per-views and that, and then you got this. That's just depressing. But if that was in a 3,000 seat building, not only would it look full beyond the rafters, but you're in that building amongst others. People get tired of me talking about my fandomhood days going to ECW events 25 years ago. But I say it for a reason. Even though it smelled like shit, smelled like armpits, you walked in there, you thought that, there was dried up liverwurst in the trunk of your car for 2 weeks. I mean, it would smell like rotten fish in there. That's how bad the armpit. Nobody wore deodorant in the ECW arena. But my point is, you went in there, you had 1,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs, having fun, trolling wrestlers, cheering. You just went out of there and you were mentally exhausted. You're like, wow, that was fucking fun. You walk into a building with the same number of fans, but you have 75% empty seats. That is not the same feeling, the same aura, the same vibe. And I know, you want to think big, but you have to think realistic. And this is not a case where Tony Khan and AEW have no choice but to book that building. They have choices. There are smaller buildings. And I wanted to show you that visual going into Wednesday show, because Wednesday I'm probably going to do audio only again. It's a little easier for me. Plus, the audio side of things is really what, keeps us in business financially. But really, they have to make some changes and they got to do it now. Problem is, they have events booked to December. But going forward, they could think in the back of their mind, oh, we got Adam Copeland now. Oh, we might have Nick Nemeth in the near future. Oh, maybe we could book Mercedes Moné. Oh, maybe we could sign, Will Ospreay. And then you book 10,000 seat arena and you sell 2,000 tickets. They have to cut it down. And that's the problem sometimes. When you have a billionaire that has so much money, they don't know what to do with it. He's not married. He has no kids. He's not being sued for alimony. He doesn't have, you never hear. Do you have any idea where Tony Khan lives? Have you, like, if Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous was still on TV, do you think we would have a special like, this is Tony Khan's house. Look, he's got 19 rooms and he's got his own, movie theater room. For all we know, the guy lives in a 1-bedroom condo. Like, you don't hear this guy, like, lighting up cigars with $100 bills. He doesn't dress like he's got $1,000 suits on. He's got so much money, and to him, as long as he's living his dream, as long as he's living his fantasy, as long as his emotional, love for wrestling is fulfilled, so what if I lose $100 million? So what if I take a bath in this company, this building? Well, so what if I have the money? That's the problem when you don't have investors or stockholders of publicly traded company. That's why AEW will never be a publicly traded company. If this was a publicly traded company, they would vote out some of the people responsible for some of this shit going on right now. This is why this company will always be owned by Tony Khan. As long as he's got the money and he wants to piss it away this way, us as wrestling fans, we're fine with it. Like I said many times, every single one of us. I don't care if you despise WWE. I don't care if you fucking fawn over AEW. At the end of the day, every single one of us are using Tony Khan. We're using him to enjoy an alternative of WWE. Sometimes it feels the same. But we're getting to see wrestlers that we probably would not see on TV right now. We're getting to see wrestlers that may have been forced into retirement. We're getting to see some wrestlers that we probably would only hear about online or, back in the day in magazines. We're getting more wrestling on television. We're using him. But at the end of the day, when you got a billionaire that doesn't have a lot of these responsibilities as a family, they say, if he was married right now with kids, you don't think Mrs. Khan would say, honey, you can't be pissing away tens of millions of dollars like this. Think about your kid's future. Think about our future. Think about this. This is a single guy. It's like a bad movie. It's a single guy that has billions and billions of dollars and doesn't know what to do with it. So he just pisses it away. And when you get something like this, so what? I still got $10 billion. So for us wrestling fans, we're using him. And I think he knows we're all using him as wrestling fans. But yeah, we're going to have that conversation on Wednesday. But I want to thank you all for joining me. I'm a little tired. Went a little bit longer than we expected to, but I think we had some fun tonight. Don't forget tomorrow night, join me for the NXT watch party. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And then right afterwards, Kev and I will be doing your latest edition of the Don Tony Kevin Couch. So we're going to have an honest conversation about Impact Wrestling rebranding as TNA. Is it going to live up to the hype? We're going to talk WWE. We're going to talk AEW. As far as Crown Jewel predictions, next Tuesday's Halloween. Kev has to work. I'm not trick-or-treating, but if we do predictions, it might be next Wednesday. Might be a special. I don't know. I got to talk to him about it. If not, then we may have to just do a special episode next Thursday. Last Thursday's Q&A is done. That will be released this Thursday for everybody to enjoy and to be continued. My friends, I get to catch my breath. What? I'm surprised after all these years we have this much energy. You would think after watching 3 hours of Raw, and that could be painful at times, that we have this much energy at night. But I got to start winding down. I got to get this shit online for everybody to enjoy that did not join me live. I thank you very much, as always, for the support. And by the way, just to close out with something, somebody DM'd me during the show live. I want to share this with you. We were talking earlier about the Undertaker's podcast. The 3 Patreon tiers that he has, there's a $5 tier, a $6 tier, and a $10 tier. I don't know what the difference is, other than I know that all 3 tiers, you get his podcast. The $10 tier, you get to ask questions. But I will tell you, as a businessman, very, very smart to do a $5 tier and a $6 tier. Think about it for a minute. If you're going to pay $5 for The Undertaker, why wouldn't you just pay the extra dollar and get a little bit more? So I think in the end, if he's got a couple of thousand patrons, I guarantee there's next to nobody in the $5 tier and almost everybody in the $6 and the $10 tier. That's actually pretty smart, man. You know, there's a restaurant here in New York, in Queens. It's called Mateo's. If anybody wants to Google it and look at their menu, they are very, very smart about something. When you go to Mateo's, it's an Italian restaurant. When you look at their menu, from Italian entrees to fish to salads to appetizers, whatever you want, how they have their menu set up, they have two prices, half order or full order. And half order might be $22. A full order might be $26. So you say to yourself, okay, if I want, linguine with clam sauce, I could get a dish for $22, but for $4 more, I could get a dish like this. Why wouldn't you spend the $4 more to get almost twice as much food? So they do that purposely because it's so close in range. If you're going to spend $5, you'll spend $6. Undertaker's very smart for doing that because he could have simply just had a $6 tier and a $10 tier. But that's pretty smart, man. We will not follow his path. Kev and I, we keep everything the way that we have on ours. Patreon.com/Don Tony. Cheap plug. Be well, everyone. I'm out of here.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.